Oysters are uniquely similar to old folks. Oysters are considered keystone colony species, meaning they thrive in a community setting where they have a centralized platform to attach, grow, thrive, and fulfill their purpose, filtering 50 gallons of water a day, single oyster, provide habitat for nursery species like shrimp, crabs, small fish, and protect shorelines from erosion and hurricane storm surge. Old folks similarly thrive in community ecosystems. They also need, like the oyster, a centralized location where they can interact with their community, fulfill their purpose, and combat social isolation. "90% of our oyster population has been decimated here on the Gulf Coast." That's important to know because each and every year, the state of Florida is at risk of losing hundreds of millions of dollars in economy every single time a red tide event occurs in our Gulf waters. For those of you who don't know, red tide is a harmful algae bloom that lays dormant in the Gulf of Mexico, microscopic plant-like algae that when the water conditions are appropriate, the water temperature rises and there's an abundance of food source. They bloom like wildfire. Typically that food source is pollution runoff from our cities, sewage leaks from our septic tanks, or just generic pollution from humans inhabiting our coastlines. Let me be clear with you. I'm excited that we're developing. We're here today because our industry, our area is growing. That's what every civilization strives to do, right? But we need to be cautious and careful on how we build the infrastructure to be able to fulfill our lives and protect our livelihood here in Sarasota and Manatee County. When the oyster reproduces, their larva meets in the water column, and they float looking for a place to land. And because we've dredged so much of our shorelines, and because we've developed so many of our coastlines, deleting mangroves, deleting oyster beds, those allies that we have to help protect our greatest asset, the Sarasota Bay Estuary, are no more. The Sarasota Bay Estuary itself is worth $11.8 billion as of 2016. More now. In 2021, more manatees died in the state of Florida than ever before in a single year. 1,101 of them suffered, perished. Now, when my brother and I, two 941 natives, read that headline, we became concerned, increasingly concerned. Why is this happening? Who's slaughtering these manatees? What's going on? Well, the answer was, it's us. It's our fault. Our pollution clouded the water column so that seagrass can't grow and the manatees starve and die. So that concern led to curiosity. What are people doing about it? What can we do about it? And that curiosity led to research. Research led to implementation. Our research landed us on this incredibly complex instrument called the vertical oyster garden. Here we have 3 feet of coconut fiber rope, 20 recycled oyster shells from restaurants ranging throughout Sarasota and Manatee counties. Now, my brother and I, as passionate Floridians, said, wow, this works, let's try it. So through implementation, we decided to take a full summer and go full speed and build as many of these as we can and hang them from our dock down in Osprey, Florida, South Sarasota. Summer of 2022, we did just that. And the proof that we had seen online from industry leaders in Tampa Bay and Sarasota came true. These vertical oyster gardens did exactly what they said they were going to do. They served as the housing structure for baby oysters, which otherwise would have floated and died because we've dredged their homes. The reefs are no more. The infrastructure was not in place for the oyster to live like he has been and fulfilling his purpose like he has been for millions of years. Oysters have been here doing that, filtering water, providing habitat, protecting shorelines since the dinosaur era, if you believe in dinosaurs. So when we installed our vertical oyster gardens, or VOGs for short, a month went by, okay, not a whole lot. Second month, third month, here we are. Oysters, baby oyster spat attaching, growing. Each time that we see, they're growing by the centimeter. Baby crabs, baby shrimp, baby fish, big fish, they're all interested because we restored what was properly there and how nature intended it. All these species were there out of nowhere like it was a block party. And so we documented our journey on social media, and neighbors and friends quickly took notice and became just as excited as we were. They then asked, well, how can I get some on my dock? Our answer was, well, we'll build one and you just hang it. Okay, fair enough. One neighbor, the next neighbor, the next. Next thing you know, we're on the cover of SRQ magazine, and here we are in TEDxBradenton speaking to you today. So our purpose was to restore what was sacred and to protect what was holy to us, our homeland. Without it, without our estuary, without our bay waters, all we got is hot weather and mosquitoes. So it's critical. It was critical to us to get back in the game, get the oyster back in the game, and do what it does best. Now, the work didn't stop there. Installing the vertical oyster gardens into docks on intercoastal waterways was half the battle. Getting people to agree to hang them from their docks, sure, easy enough. The second half of what we did and what we continue to do is almost as, if not more important, than the installation itself. Education and empowerment. We take these shells every so often, scheduled, to elementary schools, high schools, and senior living communities so that folks who otherwise had no idea, like many of you here today, about the power of the oyster and how its rightful throne is in our estuary, we get into these classrooms and these environments and we educate and we get people riled up, hoot and holler, and they match the energy. They get shells in their hands, and they're making an impact immediately, right now. Here's some shells, go protect Florida. And they respond. It's beautiful. And when these kids get shells in their hands, it's magical to see their immediate empowerment because they've been on the beaches. They've seen red tide. They've seen fish kills by the thousands. And here is an automatic implementation, a way for them to take action. Okay, exciting. Now, that's all good and dandy. But what's near and dear to my heart are old folks. See, I work in senior living. I have since I graduated college from Missouri Western State University. And I've been with that company, Grace Management, for 4 years now, and we have a program in place called the Graceful Giving Program. Dr. Ashley Smalley has birthed it, and she has recognized, as well as our industry leaders, that our older generation, older adults in America, ages 65 and plus, as their ability to go out into the community and serve it and participate, as that ability decreases, typically in assisted living communities like where I worked and continue to, their sense of purpose and sense of community decreases, which then turns into social isolation, which is more dangerous for you as an older adult than smoking 5 packs of cigarettes a day. So through this Graceful Giving program, we were able to haul hundreds of shells to our facility, explain in the same way we did with the kids, and let them know why we're doing it, and how it's going to make an impact. Just like the students, these folks got just as excited. A 5-year-old and a 105-year-old, same excitement level. It's impressive. And as the day concluded, these folks were participating. They were calling their friends, calling their family for days on end. We came back again and did it for another workshop. But something struck me that wasn't so exciting. At that moment, years of studying cultures and years of studying different communities, senior living communities that I had served in, I realized that just like the Oyster didn't have the infrastructure necessary for them to do what they do, older Americans in our communities also were restricted geographically from getting out into their community. We can haul them on the bus, but that's a lot of trouble. If you're in a wheelchair, you got to get on the lift and strap you in. If we're going to the movies, where's the bathroom? Where's the food? It's a lot of trouble because it's tough for older folks to walk. You and I and everyone here walk and came to this seminar, and here we are interacting. Even though a lot of it's indirect, these folks don't get that. And so my mind started to imagine, how can we write the future for not only Oysters, but the old folks that we serve here too? Well, could it be so simple as rope and shells? Not literally for the old folk, but perhaps just as easy to implement. When we saw that there was a problem and learned that oysters weren't in our waters as much as they used to be, and here's the infrastructure that we can immediately implement, we saw that, okay, this is how it was. This was the problem that we created. Well, how do we fix it? Let's return to how it was. Human civilization, until ultimately recently, walked everywhere. So that means everything was within walking distance. Town squares served as the meeting place for folks to grab dinner, grab coffee, interact with each other. Municipalities share messages. And even still today, you find in Italy, South America, Spain, these plazas, these town squares, the villages, Florida. Even in the villages, Florida, these squares are implemented and proven to attract vibrancy. These vertical oyster gardens are proven to attract vibrancy. For our residents, the same way that I dream about baby oysters attaching to the vertical oyster garden and growing and filtering and fulfilling their purpose, our senior living residents deserve that same infrastructure. So I beg you, I ask you today to join us in our fight to protect Florida. And if you have a dock, contact us, oysterboys.org. That's the name of our nonprofit, Oyster Boys Conservation. Contact us, get some vogs on your dock, do your part to help protect Florida. And if you're living today, hopefully you'll be living into the 65, 85-year-old range. If so, take notice of what we're speaking about today. Think about, imagine, how do you want to live? Do you, as an independent adult today, wish to live confined to strictly one single property and seeing only family members when they can make the time? Or can you imagine what it would be like to be living in your senior living apartment, no different than any other apartment, with services available and the ability to just go downstairs into a town square worth of vibrancy and resiliency? And so as we continue to try to write the future and dream how to protect Florida and build stronger communities, I ask that you join us in our fight to protect Florida as we write the future and continue to protect our communities and build more vibrant and resilient communities both above and below water. Thank you.